And welcome to Monday Night Politics, presented to you in our community by the Dallas Examiner. We have had the good fortune of having Ms. Molly Belt and her newspaper present this forum for our community for a number of years now, making sure that the residents and constituents that reside in this case, U.S. Congress District 33, are aware of the issues that are facing them, and also acquainted with those folk who are elected to represent them. Tonight, we have joining us tonight Mr. Carlos Quintanilla, who is a candidate for U.S. Representative for District 33. The other candidate not present tonight is incumbent Representative Mark Veazey. Without further ado, Mr. Quintanilla, we have a quick little round of questions that we'll go through, but you'll have 2 minutes for an opening statement, 1 minute to answer questions that come from the podium, and then 2 minutes for a closing statement. So without further ado, the microphone is yours. 2 minutes for an opening statement.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here with Dallas Examiner and all the sponsors who made this possible. It's very disappointing that here in a district that is that has 751,000 individuals who live in the 33rd Congressional District, my opponent didn't have the decency to show up and to respect the importance of this debate and this forum. I'm running because we need a change. In the 33rd Congressional District, there's 247,000 people who are living below the poverty level. There's 168,000 senior citizens who are at the below the poverty level. Unemployment is among the highest in the state. We have a very serious problem with crime in our community. We have very little programs, very little resources. We have a congressman who has been absent on issues and situations that are critical to our community. We have a congressman who has abandoned our community, who has ignored our community, who has voted on issues that adversely affect our community. We have a congressman that voted against the Clean Water Bill when in Flint, Michigan, people were subjected to contaminated water. He voted against the Keystone Pipeline. He voted to eliminate restrictions on Dodd-Frank. He voted to eliminate any kind of restrictions on payload companies. He voted in favor of the Syrian refugee bill. He is a Democrat that has shown that he is not a true Democrat, and we need to elect a Democrat that will represent the interests of all the residents of the 33rd Congressional District, and that is Carlos Quintanilla. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you for that opening statement, Mr. Quintanilla. Your district, the district drawn between Tarrant and Dallas County, is kind of like the beta test for this gerrymandering that just took place, right? Right. We understand that the state legislature, despite the growth in black and brown populations in this state, have failed to create a district like your own. How do you fix that? How do you propose to fix an entire system that has failed to adequately represent the very folk that you were talking about, 750,000 people that you're talking about?
I think the most important part is that we have to make Texas blue. We have to go out and vote. We have to defeat Governor Abbott. We have to defeat Paxton. We have to defeat the Republican legislature who's creating these horrific new gerrymandering that denies political representation to a significant part of the state of Texas. When you deny political representation to Latinos who constitute 67% of the 33rd Congressional District, when you begin to spread out the Latino population into 4 congressional districts, when you begin to dilute the African American community and spread it out, then you're basically violating the most fundamental right of all citizens and all residents, and that is the right to be represented. That's the right to have a voice in Washington, D.C. And the Republican Party has violated those rights. They have slapped us in the face, and the only way to change that is by making Texas blue.
That's a great response. And one of the things that we talked about in another panel earlier about civic engagement. And you're talking about literally overhauling the state government by turning it blue. How do you get voters mobilized to really, really affect that change?
I think it's very important to get young people involved. I think that once we begin to get young people involved, we're going to see a drastic change. We're going to see a new beginning. We're going to see a state that is so empowered. We're going to see young people taking leadership. We're going to see young people taking the initiative to bring about social change. We also need to invest in the Latino vote. Latinos in the state of Texas constitute the majority of the population, yet they have been ignored. They have been abandoned. They have not been nurtured. They have not been supported. They have not been invested in. And in order to bring about Texas blue, we need to be able to convince Latinos that they are part of the political process. We need to convince Texans that Latinos can work with the African American community. And what affects the African American community affects our community. If there's unemployment in the African American community, there's unemployment in our community. If there's racism in the African American community, certainly there's racism in our community. So I think that this is the moment where the African American community and the Latino community have to work together to defeat Governor Abbott, to defeat Paxton, to defeat the Republican leadership that has created such a horrible situation for our community. And that's going to happen because we believe that there needs to be a change. As there's going to be a new dynamic, young people will get involved.
And so much of that drive or that opportunity to engage young people will be as a result of increased focus on educational outcomes or educational opportunity. What are you prepared to do as a representative to ensure these improved access to opportunity in education and educational outcomes?
Well, we have to make education affordable. We need to make sure that young people have access to colleges and universities. We need to make sure that there's an investment in our school system, in our school districts. We need to make sure that there's a return to tutoring programs and that there's mentoring programs in our community. We need to go back and motivate teachers, empower them, incentivize them so that they stay and they continue to be great teachers. We need to provide a scholarship program for young African Americans and Hispanics. Right now, there is no scholarship program. There's no kind of program that guarantees that young people can go to SMU or that can go to University of Texas or Texas Tech, universities that for a very long time have been almost impossible for Latino and Black students to be able to attend. So we're hoping that we can invest, and we need to invest. We need to invest in our children. We need to invest in our future. We need to invest in our educational system. And the only way to do that is defeating the Republicans who have, again, make life miserable for our young students.
And so much, and I appreciate that, but so much of where the rubber meets the road is a function of what happens in Austin. And so while you may be very, very successful in creating or crafting legislation in Washington, D.C., it gets down to Austin and turns into something entirely different. So how do you envision yourself as a U.S. Congressperson influencing the Texas legislature to really, really do the things that you're working hard to do in Washington?
Well, I think that we have to have a congressman that's willing to go and talk to legislators. We need a congressman that's going to spend more time in the community. We need a congressman that's going to empower people to become activists, because I think that the more activists that we have that pressure our legislators to do the right thing, to make sure that the funds that they're receiving are getting back to our community. We need young people to become active in politics so that they can put pressure on those legislatures to guarantee, to assure that they're going to have access to tutoring programs, that they're going to have access to computers, that they're going to have access to mentoring programs, that they're going to have access to mental health care programs, because there's a lot of suicides going on in our school districts. And so I think that the only way that we're going to bring about change in forcing legislatures is by getting young people and everyone to become activists, to put the pressure on them so that they can make so that the funds that are going to Austin come back to Dallas and in our communities.
Very good. And in the light of this pandemic, if you will, healthcare issues continue to manifest themselves, not only impacting education delivery, clearly, access to the marketplace for business owners having to shut down. But you, again, have this really, really, I won't say weird for this conversation, district that straddles Tarrant and Dallas County. And so you've got this giant healthcare system in Dallas County, not so giant in Fort Worth, but nonetheless. How do you envision interacting with John Peter Smith or Parkland to improve access to healthcare for this giant 750,000 citizens?
Well, you know, Parkland originally did not have a healthcare program. They had Parkland Plus was created when the then judge wanted to eliminate access to healthcare of immigrant families and said, I don't want them having access, and she moved to eliminate any kind of healthcare for immigrant families. And the reality was that most of the healthcare consumption was coming from Plano and from Kaufman and other parts of the county. And so the reality was that immigrants were not, in fact, getting that kind of medical access. And so we need to change the narrative to make sure that everyone has access to quality health care. And quality health care has to be free. I believe in Medicare for all. I believe that every citizen, every resident, every individual who lives in the 33rd Congressional District should have access to Medicare free of cost. No bills, no invoices, that they can go to any doctor, that they can go to any physician, that they can go to any service provider and have access to quality health care. I believe that any resident in the 33rd Congressional District should have access to prescription drugs that are free, that shouldn't be a burden on them. I think that individuals from our community should have access to dialysis, to cancer treatment, to the transplant, the organ transplant. You should not die because you cannot afford quality health care. Parkland Hospital is not the only hospital in Dallas County. We have Presbyterian, we have Baylor, and we need those hospitals to also put their share and make sure that our community have access to those hospitals. And right now, access to those hospitals, including Methodist, is very limited, and we need to change that.
I don't disagree with any of that you just said, but what you just described is going to cost a lot of money. So how do you propose to get that when you have a state government right now that has voted against Medicare expansion for the at least last 3 legislative sessions that I'm aware of? So how do you again take that same energy, that same commitment to your constituents and translate it into policy that really exists and is paid for?
Well, when there's an individual that's not healthy, he can't go to work. He can't contribute to the economy. He can't provide for his family. He can't benefit the community. And so when you have sick people in our community that don't have access to health care, then the costs are much higher. It does not, there is enough money in the United States government. If we can spend billions and billions of dollars in Afghanistan and Syria and Iraq, we can spend billions and billions of dollars to make sure that every American has quality health care. And we need to begin to redirect the narrative so that we have quality health care and the investment is made. If we can spend billions of dollars, we can most certainly can spend billions of dollars in making sure that all Americans, and especially blacks and Latinos in the 33rd Congressional District, have access to quality health care without restrictions, without limitations, without financial burdens, access to quality prescription drugs. And we got to find that money, and we have to convince everyone that good health care, healthy people is a healthy America, and without a healthy America, you don't have a productive, bright future.
Good. Just talking about being able to participate in the marketplace. So we talked also earlier at another forum about economic disparities that continue to bedevil districts all across our state, but clearly District 33 is no different than that. So how do you imagine that your presence in the U.S. Congress will begin to change economic outcomes in the communities of serving those 750,000 residents?
I believe very strongly that our community is very diverse. Not everyone has the opportunity to go to college and go to SMU or Texas Tech or the University of Texas. There's a lot of young people that would do very well in vocational training programs. We need to begin to get young people and all people in non-traditional jobs. We need to get away from the Burger Kings and the Walmarts and the low-paying jobs and get young people trained in non-traditional jobs. We need to go, like Vancio Hill said, we need to go to the Secretary of Labor and say, we need funding for vocational training programs. We need training for computer training programs. We need money for non-traditional training programs in the medical field. We need financial resources to train young people and all people into the green energy jobs that are going to become available. And so what we need to do is basically invest in our community by investing the necessary resources so they can get trained, so that they can become employable, so that they can compete in quality jobs and not be relegated to jobs at McDonald's or Sam's or Burger King or Whataburger. We need to change that. We need blacks and Latinos to be able to work at Methodist Hospital, at Baylor Hospital, at NASA, at wherever they can through quality vocational training.
I'm a big proponent, and I absolutely believe that people should be able to access employment opportunities at the rate that everyone else is in the marketplace. But I work for people who are in business, and I believe that if in fact we're going to really have meaningful change in the lives of the constituents in your district, that it will be as a result of their being able to depend on a very much different kind of economy, one in which they are business owners rather than employees. How will you use your pulpit as a congressperson to change the way banks respond to business owners in your community, the way that the municipalities that make up your district provide opportunities for business owners to expand and grow into those giant businesses that we support? How do you propose to make that kind of change?
Well, I think if you look at the Latino community has been very successful in that entrepreneurial spirit. They have been able to create businesses without access to capital. I've created two big development projects, one in Pleasant Grove and one in Garland, where businesses got together and created their own kind of incubator programs. And what we need to do is apply that same kind of access so that we can begin to empower the black community to become entrepreneurial, to create the businesses. We need access to capital. We need banks to recognize that if you have a vibrant African-American business community and a vibrant Hispanic community, business community, then we're going to be able to provide jobs. We're going to be able to survive the pandemic. We're going to be able to survive very difficult situations like the winter storm. We're going to be able to empower people to believe in themselves.
How do you propose to the Dale Carnegie says, win friends and influence people, right? How do you intend to get those folk who don't believe like you do, who don't necessarily agree with you, just based on partisanship, not just because they don't know you, they haven't heard from you before? How do you intend to change their minds, make them understand that you're not just talking, that you've actually lived this, but that the legislation that you would propose as a congressperson deserves their support, should have their support?
I think they already know the importance of self-development. I think that Republicans know the importance of creating businesses. I think that Republicans understand the importance of a black-owned business. I think the Republicans understand the importance of a Latino-owned business. But they refuse to recognize that importance simply because of partisan politics. We have to be able to tell them, listen, when you empower a black business to employ people, you're reducing the dependency on state and federal monies. When you empower a Latino business to employ people, you are eliminating the dependency on federal and state funds. When you create business opportunities through businesses, then you are providing hope for people so that they can live a better life. I don't know why we have to convince the Republican Party that we want to live a better life, that we should have those opportunities. It's a battle.
It is a battle.
A never-ending battle.
What is it specifically to District 33 that will demand your highest attention upon being elected?
Could you repeat it?
What one issue that faces District 33 will demand your attention as soon as you're elected?
The biggest issue that I see in the 33rd Congressional District is drug addiction and crime. If we don't attack drug addiction in our community and crime and the recidivism, then we're going to be promoting the increase of blacks and Latinos at county jails. We need to address the issue of crime. We need to provide programs for drug rehabilitation. We need to have young people, they need to have access to quality jobs. We need to begin to invest in second chancers. You know, we need to make sure that someone who has been convicted of a felony has an opportunity to get a job, and has an opportunity to reestablish his life, and has an opportunity to become a productive part of society. And if we don't attack that problem, then we're going to have a great population that still needs a lot of help.
And it's school to prison pipeline. You hear about it, it's kind of cliched. How do you break up a justice system that depends on those black and brown bodies to populate a prison system that's out of control?
We need to eliminate Corrections Corporation of America, these for-profit jails. We need to do a new transformation on bonds and eliminate the punitive cash bond requirements. We need to provide some kind of programs for those individuals that are incarcerated for minor offenses so that they can come back into society, get jobs, make their lives better. We need them to, convince them that they need to go back into school. We need to provide tutoring programs. We need to do sports and recreational programs. We need to invest in those individuals that are part of this cycle that allow Corporation of America, all these for-profit jails, to benefit from our community. And the only way that we can get rid of them is by eliminating and decreasing the number of individuals who commit crimes and have an opportunity to do productive things in their community.
Mm-hmm. All right. So one quick circle back before we go to a closing statement, but I'd like to just have you flesh out just a bit more about education. Because right now, because of the coronavirus, we've got districts that don't want to mandate a mask, and they're going to remote learning, and we got a crazy, again, state government that's saying, no, send them back to school, and we're imperiling children. So we got health impacts, clearly we've got inability to deliver the same kind of education because of the pandemic. How do you address that? Because I don't know if it's going away soon.
Well, I'm a parent of a high school student, and I can tell you that it's been very difficult for him to adapt to virtual learning. In the schools, there's a lot of issues with bullying. There's a lot of issues with drug dealing. There's a lot of issues with fighting and gladiator fights. We have to provide a safe environment for our children to learn. We need to make sure that they have access to counselors and teachers who are concerned about them. We need to have a community satellite program so that if there's virtual learning, that these students can go in their apartment complex and have access to computers and tutoring so that they can go to recreational facilities and have access to teachers that may want to provide them some more help in their education. We need to make sure that once they leave school that there is a network of support for them, because right now they have no network of support. Parents are working, parents are trying to survive, and you have a lot of children that are simply not making it in this virtual environment.
Very good. We're going to use this last minute for your closing statement.
I need your vote. I need your help. We have a congressman who has failed our community, who has abandoned our community. When the tornadoes hit North Dallas and families were left homeless, our Congressman Mark Veazey was nowhere to be seen. When Atmos Energy, the explosions that killed Michelita Rogers, left thousands homeless, he was nowhere to be seen. When Quality Sausage in his congressional district had 264 workers infected with COVID and 3 died, he was nowhere to be seen. On issues that are important to our community, on issues that are important to you and your family, our congressman has been absent. He has raised over $8 million in corporate contributions from companies like Anadarko Petroleum, Bonanza Oil, companies that have promoted the contamination of our waters, that have affected the interest rates that poor Black and Latinos have to pay in the purchase of automobiles. He has allowed pay loan companies to gouge our community by remaining silent. We have a congressman who has abandoned our community and has given his soul to lobbyists, to petroleum companies, to special interest groups. Doesn't care about the fact that we have the highest unemployment rate in Texas. Doesn't care about that we have 32% of our community uninsured. Doesn't care about the fact that 47% of our students are graduating from high school and 53% are not going on to completing high school, that 4% are graduating from college. We have many problems, and as you can see today, he's nowhere to be seen. Please vote for Carlos Quintanilla. Let's make the 33rd Congressional District a great, productive district. Thank you very much, and God bless you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Quintanilla. Thank you so much.
Thank you very
Congressman, running for Congress, House District 33, Mr. Carlos Quintanilla. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It's
Appreciate you.
very hard to be by yourself, but
You did. You sure did.
thank you very much.
Okay. I'm wrapping up, Molly? Yeah. Okay. Thank you for attending this evening's edition of Monday Night Politics. Without question, we had a lively discussion from both candidates from District 130 and also Mr. Quintanilla representing House District 33. Tune in next week, week after next, on the 24th, for our next, I think it was the governor's race for Monday Night Politics. But the most important thing is, don't just listen in, don't just tune in on Facebook, but get out and vote, because it is your vote, your participation, that's going to make a difference in our community. Again, thank you, Ms. Belt, for Monday Night Politics. Thank you for tuning in tonight. We look forward to seeing you on next time. Thank you.